Welcome to the final episode of Nihi to Bisita. In tonight's episode, we will review the remaining 9 episodes that we did not see last week. But before we do that, let me just tell you that I was being kidded by some friends for wearing a young man's shirt, they call it. But you know what? When my grandfathers, Tatandero and Tataninashu, were in their 60s, they only wore shirts like this. Now, if you folks think that 60 is young, no argument from me, Paris. Let's take a look at the episodes. In Campanan, Guam, we trace a ship's bell that the children of Guam purchased in 1927 for the gunboat USS Guam, patrolling the Yangtze River into the heart of China. We follow the bell on its long 70-year journey from Guam to Shanghai, back to Guam, and eventually to the current USS Guam, LPH-9, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Our next episode focused on the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian award, which was presented to Tun Antonio Artero in 1947 for his notable service to the United States during World War II. Despite the threat of being executed if caught, for over 600 days, Tun Antonio and his wife Josefa bravely provided food, clothing, and shelter to U.S. Navy man George Ray Tweed, the lone American hiding on Guam. We then revisited the story of Ferdinand Magellan, whose navigational genius proved that the Earth was round, and pointed out that in that great exploration in the age of discovery, Guam played a role, however minor. We followed this with the Guam album, which gave us a chance to gauge the changes that have taken place on our island over the past few decades. In our story of a sunny place with sunny faces, we share random shots of our people of all ages who had one thing in common: smiles, smiles, smiles. The following week, we returned to Spanish times with our story on the Manila galleons, which plied the waters between Manila and Acapulco for 250 years. The galleons frequently stopped on Guam on their return trip to Manila, Guam's main contact with the outside world and the source of considerable influence on Guam's culture, language, and bloodlines. The Cross and the Sword was our next episode and centered on the dedicated work of the Jesuit missionaries in Guam and their influence, which is felt to this day. Highlighted in this episode was a query by a visiting U.S. congressman who said, "I know that the church in Guam is separated from the legislature by a street, but does the street have to be named Chalan Santo Papa with a statue of the Pope in the middle of it?" Next came Fiesta in Guam, where we visited fiestas in 2 churches and 1 private home. We made note of the increasing popularity of this great celebration and the role it plays in the blending and bonding of the multinational communities that are found in many of our villages. In our last regular episode, The Treasuries of Guam, we pointed to the depositories of materials, the artifacts, and the manuscripts that attest to the history of our island and our people. When we started our program 6 months ago, we had 4 questions that we use as guidelines. Is the program accurate? Is it relevant? Is it educational? Is it interesting? We hope that we have succeeded in getting a yes answer to all these questions. Well, folks, we hope that we have met your expectations in watching Nihi to Bisita, which we said from the beginning that we wanted to focus attention on those things that are very dear to us as a people, naturally and culturally. It is said that one of the best ways to learn is to teach. Well, I must say to you that in preparing the episodes, in order to teach some of our young people a little bit about our people and our island, I learned a lot. And I'll say honestly to you, I'm a lot better man today for knowing much more about my ancestors and our land of nativity. Aya day, istia utumu na puengi ha, taki manali italo, mono, bina gatsunedzi, birada, yesta meriandak, donklun owners te paragona, watsan sako patafan, Bisita, winigi Nihi, the Bisita. Good night.